Welcome to Health and Wellness Leader Lounge. I'm Inmar, the founder of GoAdora. Today I'm joined by Kambiz Shekdar, Biotech inventor and founder of Secondcell Bio, working between New York and Abu Dhabi. Kambiz, it's very great to have you here. To start, could you introduce yourself in your own words?
Hi, Inmar. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Dr. Kambiz Shekdar. I got my PhD under the mentorship of my advisor, Nobel laureate, Dr. Günter Blobel at the Rockefeller University. In his lab, I was in his lab for 8 years, invented a biotechnology, and have been pursuing different applications of the drug discovery technology ever since. It's a great pleasure to be on your podcast.
Welcome. To ground this for everyone listening, what does your role actually looks like today?
My role is an adventurer. I created a biotechnology platform that makes drug discovery more efficient, and I'm seeing about developing the business and discovering more and more drugs to help people with diseases and different things. We discovered a leading non-addictive painkiller that the FDA fast-tracked and which is in clinical human trials right now, which could help address the opioid epidemic. It should block pain better than things like morphine, and it should hopefully not cause any addiction issues.
Amazing. And what does a normal work day looks like for you?
Every day is very different. Usually it's discussions with different people, whether it's collaboration partners in pharmaceutical companies or potential investors or even government and public sector groups that are looking at making vaccines against new bioweapon threats.
You know, the first time I was reading about you and your work and your business, I realized not something you immediately understand like from the outside. For me, it was a little bit hard to understand what exactly are you doing. And for someone hearing about your work for the first time, how would you explain what you're building in simple terms?
Sure. The space we work in is drug discovery. Interestingly, about 98% of drug discovery programs in the pharmaceutical industry fail. So only 1 or 2% of the times is this process successful. This means there's a dire need to improve the process at all stages. And the process to find new drugs starts by making cells in the lab that mimic human biology exactly as it exists in the body. But it's very difficult to make cells that are accurate detectors. And the technology I invented helps us make cells that mimic human disease exactly as it exists in the body. And that's the starting point of discovering new drugs that affect disease. So we have shown that we can make better cells, and we've done this for a small number of disease areas. And the next step is to scale it up and maybe make a factory for discovering drugs in many different disease indications.
A lot of people often misunderstand at the beginning. What do people often misunderstand at first when they hear about your work or your business and what are you doing?
One of the confusing things is because we can go after any gene, we've also collaborated, for instance, with the Coca-Cola company, Kraft Foods, and Nestle. There we tackled taste biology. We made cells that mimic salty taste, sweet taste, bitter taste. And there we looked to use these cells like little taste buds inside a petri dish to do turbo taste testing of natural extracts to find natural ingredients, kind of like stevia, but say for salt taste, natural ingredients that make salt more salty or sweet more sweet, so that we can naturally reduce salt and sugar in the diet. And sometimes people get confused. We have a non-addictive pain drug candidate. We have the first natural ingredients that make salt more salty. So it's a little bit hard for people to put us in one box. Is this a flavors technology? Is it a drug company? It's really all of them. And in Abu Dhabi and Saudi, we explored other areas too. Like, for instance, there's a beetle called the red palm beetle that's destroying date palm trees. And it's a new pest in the region. As you know, date palms are very important culturally and agriculturally. And we're exploring making cells that mimic the insect smell biology to find compounds that are volatile that can go in the air like perfumes and that jam the ability of the insect to even find the date palms. So that could create a new form of pest control, not toxic molecules that kill things and that pollute the environment, but molecules that stop the insect from even finding its food source.
The gap between expectation and reality is interesting. It's such a huge difference what people expecting and what you are actually doing. I mean, I understand that you can use that biotechnology in so many places and also in plants, like you said. It's amazing, to be honest. Would you like to show us something about your technology or and explain more in details if you like?
Sure, I can show maybe one slide that really captures the heart of the method. Let me see if I can get this on the screen. So this slide overviews the technology which we called Chromovert. And basically, you add your genes to cells. Let's say these are genes involved in cancer or diabetes or whatever genes. You add them to a petri dish of cells, and a petri dish of cells can have 10, 20 million cells. And you want to isolate the cells that are, took up the gene, are producing the target gene optimally. My invention is shown in the middle, where we add these small molecules called molecular beacons. They are like short pieces of DNA. One end has a molecule that gives off light, green light, pink light, whatever color you want, and the other end absorbs the light like a sponge. And here are living cells that don't have your gene. The probe, the molecule, the molecular beacon stays in this shape. The fluorescent molecule is next to the molecule that absorbs the light. But if your cells have the gene, if they contain the gene, this molecule opens up. This loop middle portion sticks to the gene of interest, and this breaks the molecule apart so that the light emitting part is away from the light absorbing part, and the cells light up. And then we use a machine called a cell sorter that scans thousands of cells per second, and we automatically isolate the cells that are having high levels of your gene of interest.
Very good explain.
Thank you.
By the way, you just said before an example about salt getting much more salty, and I read once blog about sugar. It's like kind of similar way. I mean, there was that blog was when people how people eat less sugar by making the intensity of sugar much more. Normally, when we eat sugar, we taste only like around 30 to 40% from it, and that's mean by the technology that you have, you can also kind of maybe like the intense of the sweetness can go higher, like instead of feeling 30 40, like more to 60 70, and you can do that by any spices and everything, or how is it?
Exactly. Think about it like sound. You can turn the volume up. So you can find natural ingredients that turn the volume up on your ability to detect sweetness. So if you have, just like a chef, when a chef makes a new dish, you get new flavors and how you combine these ingredients. So there are some combinations of natural ingredients that make a little bit of sugar taste like more sugar. And if you find these rare ingredients and ingredient combinations, you can get the same sweet taste, but with less sugar.
If you can do that with everything, that's gonna be a very healthy way to taste everything. I mean, you eat less and enjoy it more. I wasn't thinking like something like this is possible. So I will jump to our next part right now, to the challenges that you had. For everyone building a company, especially in health or science, or there are always challenges from day one and even later on. But before we talk about the hard part, I mean, the challenges, I would like to start with something positive. What's working well right now in the business or in general?
Well, a lot of things are working well, and all of them are challenges too. We went after biology projects that were really out of reach, things where companies and academic groups were failing, and we wanted to show can we find solutions in these difficult spaces, and we have in dozens of areas. One of the exciting things is the non-addictive pain drug candidate we found. We actually IPO'd that on New York Stock Exchange via a separate company, and that shows the method works. It works to find things that were really out of reach. And I've been having a lot of interesting discussions in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi, where the countries are looking at diversifying their economy beyond oil. Biotech is one of the industries that's off. And I think because I own the method, I invented the method and I own it privately, we never had investors. I'm free to take the method and export it there. So those are very exciting discussions. At the same time, it's challenging because starting a new biotech sector is a lot of work. There's a lot of thought that has to go into it, workforce development, building the lab infrastructure. So it's all a lot of consideration in launching a brand new biotech sector. And in parallel, I'm also looking in the US with venture capital partners to see, now that we've reduced the biology risk, can we scale this up and look at the scale up risk?
Amazing. I mean, since we are talking about the challenges, what's been harder than people might expect, especially when things actually start working?
Well, once the technology has been demonstrated for a few programs, scaling it up is the next challenge. And the example I want to follow is how the Genome project was done. Initially, sequencing DNA was a very slow and tedious method, very manual. And about 20 years ago, people figured out how to speed that up, make it automated. And the US government, in a public-private partnership, did the first draft of the genome by getting a lot of machines to do the new automated method, and that resulted in the first full draft of the human genome. And as you know, now in many countries around the world, there are genome sequencing projects where entire national genomes are being sequenced. I think we're following in the same footsteps. Drug discovery was a very difficult manual process. We've automated that, we've made it better. So the next step is, how do we scale this up? If successful, we could imagine having drug discovery centers around the world where we find drugs for every region. We find drugs that are ideally suited for the Chinese population, for the Arab population, for Africa, not just for the markets where these tools exist, and really making it available worldwide.
Understand. So the scaling that technology is kind of a little bit hard because there isn't a lot of country that they want to invest in, or how is it?
I don't think it's very hard. I think a lot of countries want to do biotechnology, and it's one of the sciences which is delivering commercial results. Just getting the partnerships put together takes time, and finding the right partner takes time, and it's a very exciting time to be in.
Me personally, I live here in Europe. I don't hear a lot about. I mean, sure, we have a biotech also, but I don't think it's that much in the news and the paper and the digital world. I would say, like in social media, you don't see a lot of people that talk about it and how we have to use it and how much important that is. Such a technology for me is very important and should every country invest in and try much better to put into so many different ways.
Right. I think that's what's nice about your podcast, because a lot of scientists are not social media influencers. So there's a lot of awareness for non-technical things generally. I think there is a lot of science going on. And through series like your podcast, people can hear more about what are some of the things in science. In Europe, there's in tremendous biotechnology capability, lots of experts there. My PhD advisor himself, he was from Germany and moved to the US, but Germany, France, Switzerland, England, Sweden, many countries in Europe have fantastic academic science and biotech innovation.
I'm very happy like to let other people and leaders to listen for that, and I hope they can have the chance to invest more time and much more money in the investment to make it reach everyone outside every country. I will jump next question. I ask that question to every founder I speak with because it's often reveals something deeper than surface level challenges. I know like the scaling is one of the problem, Like in the business right now, where do you feel you personally are the bottleneck, like the hardest challenge to achieve things?
Well, the most interesting thing for me was in the last 2 to 3 years, I spent most of my time in Abu Dhabi. I was very impressed by the culture, by the leadership, by how everything is very project based. The leadership in the country decides what they want to do, and then they bring in human capital, they bring in experts from around the world, leading experts to do those things. And I think it's very exciting that they're looking at more than a dozen non-oil sectors and getting these things going. I'd love to be there, but the decisions how fast and when they open up their biotech sector are not in my hands. I hope that the country dives deep into biotech. I think if even a fraction of the oil wealth that UAE has or Saudi has, it goes towards biotech, then there are so many mature biotechnologies. These countries can cherry pick maybe six or a dozen demonstrated platform technologies and really scale these things. And I think that would leapfrog a lot of other biotech centers around the world, and brand new biotech innovation hubs could be created to move science forward and to discover and develop new medicines for the benefit of science and humankind.
That means it's kind of also lack of education, I would say. Not a lot of people know about that. What do you think?
I think the economies that are developing into new sectors are thoughtfully looking at how to do these. I think it's something that has to be done really thoughtfully. Just investing in biotech without looking at workforce development, without looking at how our patents regarded, would be reckless. And it's important to take these things step by step and build the frameworks and infrastructure for companies to survive and thrive. So all of that work is going on, and it takes time to put all the fabric in place. Otherwise, one biotech here or there in the desert will perish. But to implement the whole root system, supply chains, like how do these labs get equipment they need? How do they get the talent pool they need? All of that has to be figured out and sorted for the industry to really take root and succeed.
Understand. Do you think other biotech companies and business struggle although with the same thing, or is it differently?
There's all kinds of biotechnologies, there's all kinds of diseases to look at and stages of development. Some companies have new ideas how to do things better and need to work on their ideas. Some have clinical candidate drugs that need to go into human trials. And so the challenges are different for everyone based on their innovation and the stage of development. For instance, if you're working on Alzheimer's, clinical trials take a long time to see if memory is improved, if cognition is improved. And if you're looking at pain, they can be very fast because you can quickly see does something help you with your pain symptoms. So depending on the company and what they're developing, it can look really different.
Understand. We jump now to another section again, to the leader section.
Okay.
I mean, the level of responsibility takes a toll, like something physically, something mentally. What have you learned about your own health through the journey as a leader?
Very difficult because in our case, we didn't have venture capital, we didn't have investors. So we took on very, very difficult projects for clients. And in order to get paid, we would have to deliver results. In each case, we succeeded. We met all the technical and commercial goals, but that puts blinders on. We have to be very goal oriented. We have to. A lot of scientists are creative. There's lots of directions you can go and things to explore. We had to be very disciplined to just focus on what's the client goal and are we making progress for the client based on the mutually agreed goals. That's always challenging, but necessary to succeed in a business that's customer funded. Besides that, taking on projects for one client at a time, it's hard to finish a project and then find the next client. We've succeeded, but it definitely hasn't been easy.
Understand. Look into the future now and zoom out for a moment. Looking ahead 6 months from now, what would meaningful progress look like for you, not just as a business, but in terms of impact?
So for me, I invented my technology back when I was a graduate student many years ago. And I've stayed with it all these many years. And now we know it works. The next step is to scale it up. I'm actually looking for about $100 million, which is the amount we need to ramp up the equipment, build up the team. And I'm in early discussions with venture capital firms that like projects where there are complex biology, where the biology risk has been addressed, and next is scale up. And these are firms like Flagship, Third Rock, Arch, other big venture capital firms. And I think the the next step would really be to get the level of funding we need to get to the next stage. That's not the end of it. From the 100 million, once we can show we can do this at a larger scale, then from there we would go on to additional drug targets and additional drug targets. And that's where I am right now.
That's a very strong direction. I really hope you all
Strong and
like.
doable.
For sure, everything is doable. I think you can manage that.
Thank you. It would be great to follow up in a few months and see where we are.
I will follow up. If you could fix one thing in the business today, what would it be?
I think there's a lot of hype in a lot of companies. There's a lot of companies where there's like a kernel of something solid and there's a mountain of hype around it. And I think that's terrible because yes, every company needs to make the best of the position they have. But in some cases, it can be really misleading, and the foundation isn't there. In my case, I came to biotech as a very solid scientist, trained at Rockefeller University under a Nobel Prize winner. So in my case, my story has zero hype. All of our claims, I think we can solidly back. But as I bump into different companies in the space, just unfortunate to see how much pressure some of these companies are under, where a lot of their claims are really hard to defend if you look at the data.
Pressure. A lot of companies have that pressure, I guess. It's something that a lot of business deal with it, I would
Right.
say. I mean, years from now, when people look back at your work, what do you hope they say actually changed because you were involved?
I hope we discover tons of drugs that are safe, that actually work. Today, a lot of drugs have side effects, especially drugs for CNS indications like central nervous system indications, but psychiatric drugs for depression, anxiety. A lot of patients take these drugs, but this drug has certain side effects for them. It has other side effects for other people. People don't really know how these drugs truly work. And I think the biology of the brain is a next frontier that needs to be teased apart so that people have treatments and therapies that work effectively and safely. I think that's one of the areas where tackling the underlying biology is very, very complex. Many people are trying. I believe our technology has potential for really teasing this space apart. And in this space and another space, I hope that we can realize the potential of the technology to really find drugs that help people in all kinds of conditions.
I agree with that. I mean, at the beginning, like I said, I wasn't knowing that much about the business and how it's about like the BioCell and how it's work. And now by talking with you, I understand much better. And the way how you explained it was a very good way. And I hope also much people invest in that technology uses to it's healthy thing for the people. It's a good thing to invent and to scale it. And
It's how progress is made, right? Like, let's say when the Egyptians built the pyramids, those were amazing inventions and they still are. And then later on, we had other discoveries, like let's say when the iPhone was invented, that was transformative. And now we have AI. It's hard to imagine the technologies of the future. And I think with biotechnology, we're still in the early days, and the field is maturing. And I think in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 50 years, there will be incredible strides that, imagine today, but there's always room for improvement and inventions to really make progress.
I agree with that. It's like a new era, I would say. For the final question, Kambiz, if you could leave founder and leaders listening with one thought about building health and wellness solution that truly improve human lives, what would it be?
It's important to go for really difficult goals, because if you make progress towards those goals, not only will you solve something that has been out of reach, but the advancements in getting there would have huge potential utility for many other areas that are important as well. And I would say not to shy away from difficult projects, but to take them on and to defeat them.
That's great. That's nice words. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it was such an honest and growing conversation with you. And for people who want to learn more about you and your work, where they can find you, where should they go?
Well, my LinkedIn profile is best. I don't know if you can put it up on screen, and also my
I will put it here
email.
on screen. I will show it later, no
Happy
problem.
to talk with people who connect with me on LinkedIn. And also, you can share my email too at Secondcell Bio. Always happy to talk.
I will put everything here, and in the comment section also I will put all the information so everyone can reach out for you.
Great. Thank you, Inmar.
Thanks again, and thanks for everyone listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Health and Wellness Leader Lounge.